The station hung in the darkness between two worlds. On one side, the red planet Krith burned with heat and anger. On the other side, the blue planet Veltos glowed with soft light. Between them floated the Peace Station, a small metal home where humans lived and worked. Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the white halls of the medical center. Her feet made quiet sounds on the floor. She had worked here for 3 years. Every day was the same. Check the patients, fill out reports, make sure no one was making weapons. It was boring work, but it was important work. The Kryn were tall and had hard shells like insects. They moved fast and could lift heavy things. They were warriors who loved to fight. 500 years ago, they tried to take over the whole galaxy. They burned planets and killed millions. The Velthera were different. They had no bodies you could see. They were made of pure energy and light. They could read minds and move things without touching them. When the Kryn attacked, the Velthera fought back. The war lasted 50 years. Both sides lost so much that they almost died out completely. Then the humans came. They were new to space. They were not as strong as the Kryn. They could not read minds like the Velthera, but they knew how to talk. They knew how to make peace. After 10 years of meetings, the three sides signed the peace accord. The rules were simple. The Kryn and Velthera would stop fighting. They would trade with each other. They would not make weapons, and humans would watch over everything. Human doctors would work on both sides. If anyone tried to make bioweapons or mind weapons, the humans would know. For 500 years it worked. The peace held. Both sides grew strong again. New planets were settled. Trade made everyone rich. Young Kryn and Velthera grew up never knowing war. But some old ones remembered. Some still hated. Sarah finished checking her last patient. It was a Kryn soldier who hurt his arm in a mining accident. She put healing gel on the wound and wrapped it. The soldier nodded his thanks. His face was hard to read, but Sarah had learned to see the small signs. The way his antenna moved meant he was grateful. Her radio beeped. It was the front desk. There was an emergency. A mining tunnel collapsed on the moon below. 30 Kryn workers were trapped. Some were hurt badly. They needed a doctor right away. Sarah grabbed her medical bag and ran to the shuttle bay. 2 other medics were already there. They jumped into the small ship and flew down to the moon. The gray rocks rushed up to meet them. Red lights flashed at the mine entrance. Kryn workers stood around, their shells clicking with worry. Sarah and her team ran inside. The tunnel was dark and full of dust. Broken rocks lay everywhere. They found the first group of workers quickly. Most had small cuts and broken bones. Sarah worked fast, giving shots and wrapping wounds. Her team carried the worst cases back to the shuttle. Then she heard crying. It was a small sound like a bird. Sarah pushed through the rocks and found a young Kryn child. He was only 6 years old. His father worked in the mine and brought him to visit. Now a large rock pinned his leg. Blood leaked from under his shell. Sarah knelt down. She spoke softly to the child. She told him everything would be okay. She pulled out her tools and started to lift the rock. The child cried harder. Sarah gave him medicine for the pain. She worked carefully, moving the rock bit by bit. That was when the bright light filled the tunnel. Sarah looked up. 3 Velthera floated in the air. They glowed with blue and white light. But something was wrong. Their light flickered and turned dark. These were not normal Velthera. These were extremists, radicals who wanted the war to start again. One of them raised what looked like a weapon. It was made of pure energy, shaped like a gun. Sarah did not think. She threw herself over the Kryn child. She covered his small body with her own. The weapon fired. It made no sound. There was just a flash of red light. Sarah felt something hit her back. It burned like fire. She screamed. Her whole body went stiff. Then everything went dark. She woke up in the medical center. Bright lights hurt her eyes. Machines beeped around her. Her back still burned. She tried to sit up, but gentle hands pushed her down. It was Velshara, a young Velthera diplomat. She worked at the station as an observer. Her light was soft and green, which meant she was worried. Next to her stood Ambassador Thelric. He was very old for a Kryn, maybe 90 years. His shell had cracks in it from old battles. He had been a general in the Great War. He was one of the ones who signed the peace accord all those years ago. Thelric spoke in his clicking voice. The translator box on his chest turned it into words Sarah could understand. He said she was a hero. She saved the child. The boy was alive and safe. But Sarah was hurt badly. The weapon had hit her in the back. It was not a normal weapon. It was designed to scan her body, to look inside her and see her secrets. Sarah felt cold. She asked what they found. Velshara dimmed her light. She said they found something in Sarah's blood. Tiny machines, nanotechnology, military grade, the kind used for soldiers, the kind that could make a person stronger, faster, able to heal from any wound. Sarah's heart beat faster. She knew about the nanotech. The human military had put it in all medical staff 2 years ago. They said it was just to help them survive in dangerous places, to keep them alive so they could help others. But they told the doctors not to tell anyone. It was classified secret. Now the secret was out. The Velthara extremists wanted to prove humans were cheating. They wanted to show that humans had military enhancements. They wanted to break the peace accord. And they had proof. Velshara said it was worse. The scan data was already sent to the Velthara Collective. Their leaders were meeting right now. They were angry. They said humans broke the neutrality clause. They said if humans had secret military technology, maybe they were planning something. Maybe they were choosing sides. Thelric added more bad news. The Kryn Empire heard about it too. They did not trust the Velthara. If the Velthara were upset with humans, maybe it was a trick. Maybe the Velthara wanted to push humans away so they could attack the Kryn alone. The Kryn fleets were moving to the border. Just in case, Sarah closed her eyes. One shot, one stupid shot in a mine tunnel. And now the whole galaxy might go to war again. 500 years of peace destroyed in one moment. She had to fix this. She had to find out who sent those extremists. She had to prove the nanotech was not for war. She had to save the peace, but first, she had to understand what was really happening, because something felt wrong. The attack was too perfect, too planned. Someone wanted this war to start, and Sarah was going to find out who. Sarah spent 2 days in bed. Her back still hurt, but the nanotech in her blood was already healing her. She could feel the tiny machines working inside her body. They fixed the burned skin. They repaired the damaged muscles. By the 3rd day, she could walk again, but outside her room, the galaxy was falling apart. Velshara visited her every day. The young diplomat brought news, and none of it was good. The Velthara Collective had called an emergency meeting. They demanded that all human medical staff be inspected. They wanted to scan every human on every station. They wanted to know what other secrets the humans were hiding. The Kryn Empire saw this as an attack on human honor. Ambassador Thelric tried to calm his people, but the young generals did not listen to him anymore. They said the old ambassador was soft. They said he trusted humans too much. They moved their battle fleets closer to the border. They said it was just training exercises, but everyone knew the truth. Earth sent messages every hour. The human government was confused and angry. They asked Sarah what happened. They asked her to explain. But Sarah had questions of her own. She called her commander on Earth using the secure video link. Commander Park appeared on the screen. She was a hard woman with gray hair and cold eyes. She had been in the military for 40 years. Sarah asked her about the nanotech. When was it installed? Why was it kept secret? Who authorized it? Commander Park was quiet for a long moment. Then she said it was installed 2 years ago. It was authorized by Admiral Kress, the head of human military operations. The official reason was safety. Medical staff worked in dangerous places. The nanotech would keep them alive. It would help them survive accidents, attacks, diseases. Sarah asked why it was secret. Commander Park looked away from the camera. She said some people in the military did not trust the peace accord. They thought the Kryn and Velthara were just waiting for a chance to attack. They wanted humans to be ready. The nanotech was just the beginning. There were other programs, other preparations. Sarah felt sick. She asked if the nanotech was really just for medicine. Could it be used for combat? Commander Park nodded slowly. She said yes. The nanotech could make soldiers faster, stronger. It could heal wounds in seconds. It could turn a normal person into a super soldier. But that was not what it was being used for. All the medical staff were peaceful. They were doctors, not warriors. Sarah ended the call. She sat in the dark room and thought. The extremists were right. Humans did have military enhancements. But they were wrong about why. It was not a plan to attack. It was fear. Some humans were so afraid of another war that they prepared for one, and now their fear might cause the very war they were afraid of. The next day, Velshara came with urgent news. She said the scanning data was analyzed by Velthera scientists. They found something strange. The weapon that shot Sarah was not just a scanner. It had a second function. It was also a transmitter. It sent the data to multiple locations, not just to the Velthera collective, but to other places too. Sarah sat up fast. She asked where else the data was sent. Velshara showed her a hologram. There were 5 receiving points. One was the Velthera homeworld. That made sense. But the other 4 were scattered across the galaxy. 2 were in neutral space. 1 was near Kryn territory. 1 was in a system that belonged to neither side. Someone wanted everyone to know about the nanotech. Someone wanted to spread the news far and wide. This was not just an attack. It was a message. It was propaganda. Ambassador Thelric arrived at her room. He looked older than ever. His shell was dull and his movements were slow. He sat down heavily in a chair. He said he needed to tell Sarah something. Something he had kept secret for many years. He said he was dying. He had been dying for 30 years. Old wounds from the war were killing him slowly. His organs were failing. His shell was cracking. By all rights, he should have died decades ago. But human medicine kept him alive. Sarah and the other doctors gave him treatments. They used advanced technology to repair his body. They gave him synthetic organs. They used nanotech to strengthen his shell. Not the military kind. The medical kind. The kind that was made just to heal. Thelric said he never told his people. If the Kryn knew their great ambassador was kept alive by human technology, they might lose faith. They might think he was weak. Or worse, they might think he was controlled by humans. Sarah understood. The nanotech in her body was the same technology that kept Thelric alive. It was not a weapon. It was a gift. Humans had used their knowledge to save lives, to build bridges between species, to make peace possible, but someone twisted that truth. Someone made it look like a weapon. Someone wanted war. Sarah made a decision. She told Velshara and Thelric her plan. She would find out who was behind the attack. She would track down the extremists. And she would prove that the nanotech was not a threat. But she could not do it alone. She needed help from both sides. She needed someone who understood the Velthara, and she needed someone who could move in Kryn circles. Velshara immediately volunteered. She said she believed in the peace. She grew up after the war. She never wanted to see that darkness again. She would use her telepathic abilities to track the extremists. She could read energy signatures. She could follow their trail. Thelric thought for a moment. Then he called someone on his communicator. A young Kryn appeared on the screen. He was tall and strong with a bright green shell. His name was Crix. He was Thelric's grandson. Crix was an officer in the Kryn military. He was smart and brave. He was also curious. He did not blindly follow the old ways like some of the generals. He asked questions. He thought for himself. Thelric explained the situation to Crix. He asked his grandson to help Sarah. Crix was silent for a moment. Then he said yes. He would come to the station. He would investigate. He wanted to know the truth just as much as they did. So the team was formed. A human doctor, a Velthara diplomat, a Kryn officer, 3 people from 3 different species, working together to save the peace. They started with the attack site. Sarah returned to the mine tunnel where she was shot. The place was empty now. The rocks were cleared. The workers went back to their jobs. But evidence remained. Velshara closed her eyes and spread her energy. She could sense the echoes of what happened. She could feel the emotions left behind. Fear, pain, but also something else. Cold calculation. The extremists who attacked were not emotional. They were following orders. They were soldiers, not fanatics. Crix examined the physical evidence. He found burn marks on the walls. Energy signatures. He took samples and ran them through his scanner. The results surprised him. The weapon that shot Sarah was not Velthara military technology. It was custom-made. Built specifically for this attack. Sarah checked the station logs. She looked at who was present during the attack. Who knew she would be in that mine? Who had access to the schedules? The list was short. Only a few people knew where the medical team would be that day. They compiled their findings. The evidence pointed in a troubling direction. This was not a random attack by angry extremists. This was planned by someone with resources, someone with inside information, someone in a position of power. The question was who? Who benefited from restarting the war? Who wanted the peace accord to fail? Sarah thought back to her conversation with Commander Park. The human military had hardliners who did not trust the peace. But there must be similar people among the Kryn and Velthera. People who missed the old days. People who made money from conflict. People who had power during wartime and lost it during peace. They needed to dig deeper. They needed to find the connection. Because somewhere in the galaxy, powerful people were pulling strings. And if Sarah and her team did not stop them soon, those strings would pull the galaxy into war. The investigation moved fast. Sarah, Velshara, and Crix worked day and night. They followed the data trails. They interviewed witnesses. They dug through old records. Crix discovered something interesting. 3 months before the attack, large amounts of money moved through secret accounts. The money came from 3 sources. One account was registered to a Kryn weapons company. One belonged to a Velthera energy cartel. The third was traced to a human military contractor. All 3 companies made huge profits during the Old War. When peace came, they lost business. Peace was bad for people who sold weapons and war machines. Velshara used her telepathic powers to scan the Velthara extremists who were captured after the attack. She went deep into their minds looking for memories. What she found shocked her. The extremists were not true believers. They were mercenaries. Hired guns. Someone paid them to attack Sarah and make it look like a radical movement, but the mercenaries did not know who hired them. They received orders through encrypted messages. They got paid in untraceable currency. Whoever organized this was very careful. Very smart. Sarah searched through medical records. She found other strange things. Over the past year, several incidents happened at peace stations. Small accidents, equipment failures. Nothing major, but always just enough to create tension. A Kryn worker got sick from contaminated food and blamed Velthera suppliers. A Velthara meditation chamber malfunctioned and some blamed human maintenance crews. Each incident was minor. Each one was explained away. But together they formed a pattern. Someone was creating distrust. Slowly, carefully, building up to something bigger. The attack on Sarah was the final move. The big event that would tip everything into chaos. The team met in Sarah's quarters to discuss their findings. Crix laid out all the evidence on a holographic display. The money trails, the hired mercenaries, the pattern of small incidents. It all pointed to a conspiracy. A group of powerful people working together to restart the war, but they still did not have names. They did not have proof that would hold up in front of the Galactic Council. They needed more. That was when Ambassador Thelric sent an urgent message. The Galactic Council was holding an emergency summit in 3 days. All the leaders would be there. Human Kryn and Velthera. They would decide what to do about the nanotech revelation. They would decide if humans could stay as neutral peacekeepers. If the Council voted against humans, the peace accord would fall apart. Without human mediators, there would be nothing to stop another war. Sarah knew they were running out of time. They needed to find the conspirators before the summit. They needed to expose the plot. Velshara had an idea. She said there was one person who might know more. A Velthera mystic named Sharkon. He was old and powerful. He could see things others could not. He lived on a remote moon, far from civilization. Some said he was crazy. Others said he knew all the secrets of the galaxy. It was a long shot, but they had no other leads. The 3 of them took a small shuttle and flew to the moon. It took 6 hours. The moon was dark and cold. Nothing grew there. Only rocks and ice. They found Sharkon in a cave. He glowed with ancient light, dim and flickering. He did not speak with words. He communicated directly into their minds. It felt strange for Sarah and Crix. Like someone whispering right inside their heads, Sharkon said he knew why they came. He saw the darkness spreading across the galaxy. He saw the conspiracy. And he knew 3 names, Admiral Kress of the human military. He was the one who authorized the nanotech program. But he did more than that. He wanted humans to be the dominant military power in the galaxy. He believed the only good peace was one enforced by human strength. General Thax of the Kryn Empire. He was young and ambitious. He never fought in the Great War. He grew up on stories of Kryn glory. He wanted to lead his people to victory. He wanted to be remembered as a great conqueror. Seer Velkoth of the Velthera Collective. She was a war seer. During the Old War, she predicted battles and helped win victories. In peacetime, she had no purpose, no power. She wanted to return to the days when her visions mattered. 3 leaders, 3 species, all working together in secret to destroy the peace they pretended to protect. Sharkan showed them visions. They saw secret meetings, encrypted communications, plans for the final move. The conspirators planned to assassinate the council delegates at the summit. They would make it look like each side killed the others, the perfect spark for total war. Sarah felt cold horror. Thousands would die, millions, maybe billions if the war spread across the whole galaxy. They had to stop it. Sharkan gave them one more gift. He showed them where the assassination would take place. The summit was being held on a neutral station called Unity Point. The main conference room had been secretly modified. Bombs were hidden in the walls. When all the delegates gathered, the bombs would detonate. The station would be destroyed. Everyone would die. The team rushed back to their shuttle. They had the information they needed. But they had a new problem. Who could they trust? If they went to the authorities, the conspirators might hear about it. Kresthax and Velkoth all had loyal followers. They had spies everywhere. Sarah made a hard choice. They would go to Unity Point themselves. They would find the bombs. They would expose the conspiracy in front of everyone. At the summit. Live in public. The conspirators could not cover it up if the whole galaxy was watching. It was dangerous. If they failed, they would die with everyone else. But if they succeeded, they would save billions of lives. They flew toward Unity Point. The journey took 2 days. During that time, they prepared. Crick studied the station schematics. Velshara practiced using her powers to detect explosives. Sarah went over her medical scans of the nanotech, preparing to explain its true purpose. Ambassador Thelric sent them messages of encouragement. He said he was proud of them. He said they represented the best of what peace could create. 3 species working as one, not because they had to, but because they chose to. On the last night before they reached Unity Point, Sarah could not sleep. She walked through the shuttle and found Crix in the cargo bay. He was checking his equipment. His shell gleamed in the dim light. They talked for a while. Crix said he never understood humans before. Kryn valued strength above all. They respected warriors, but humans were different. Humans valued compassion. They healed instead of hurt. They built bridges instead of walls. He said Sarah changed his view. When she threw herself over that Kryn child in the mine, she showed true strength. Not the strength to kill, but the strength to sacrifice. That was power more valuable than any weapon. Sarah smiled. She said she learned from him too, from both him and Velshara. She learned that species might look different, but deep down all of them wanted the same things. Safety, home, a future for their children. Peace was not about everyone becoming the same. It was about respecting the differences while working toward common goals. Velshara joined them. Her light glowed warm and yellow. She said she could feel something building. A moment of great importance. The future would be decided soon. She was afraid, but she was also hopeful, because for the first time she truly believed they could win. The next morning they arrived at Unity Point. The station was massive. Thousands of delegates and staff moved through its corridors. Security was tight. Warships from all 3 species patrolled the area. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Sarah, Crix, and Velshara split up. They each had a job to do. Crix would search for the bombs. Velshara would scan for hostile mines. Sarah would gather proof of the conspiracy from the station's databanks. The summit was in 6 hours. They had to work fast. The clock was ticking, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Crix moved through the maintenance tunnels beneath the conference hall. His scanner showed traces of unusual energy. He followed the signals through the dark passages. Water dripped from old pipes. The air smelled like metal and oil. He found the first bomb hidden behind a ventilation grate. It was small but powerful, enough to blow a hole in the station hull. He carefully disabled it and marked its location. Then he found another, and another. There were 12 bombs in total, positioned around the conference room. When they went off together, nothing would survive. Crix sent a secure message to Sarah and Velshara. He found the bombs. He could disable them, but it would take time. He needed at least 2 hours. The summit started in 4. Meanwhile, Velshara moved through the crowd of delegates. She expanded her senses, feeling for minds with dark intent. There were so many people here, so many thoughts. It was like standing in a storm of voices. She filtered through them one by one, looking for the conspirators. She found General Thax first. He stood among a group of Kryn officers, his shell polished and bright. His mind was sharp and cold. She could sense his thoughts. He was excited. He believed today would be the beginning of a new era, a new war, and he would lead it. Next, she located Sir Velkoth. The old Velthera glowed with purple light. Her mind was twisted with visions of death and destruction. She had seen this day coming for years. She had planned every detail. In her mind, the coming war was already won. Admiral Kress was harder to find. He was human, so Velshara could not read his thoughts as clearly. But she felt his presence, cold, calculating, certain of his righteousness. He believed he was saving humanity by doing this. He thought the only way to protect Earth was to dominate the galaxy. Velshara reported her findings. All 3 conspirators were here. They were watching, waiting. As soon as the bombs went off, they would take control. They had loyal forces ready. They would blame each other's species for the attack. The war would begin immediately. Sarah was in the data center, hacking into the station's main computer. She found encrypted files, coded messages, financial records, everything she needed to prove the conspiracy. But the files were locked with multiple layers of security. She needed help. She called the only person she could trust completely, Ambassador Thelric. She explained what she needed. Access codes, clearance. Thelric was quiet for a moment. Then he said he would give her everything, but there was a price. He said using his codes would expose his secret. The medical treatments. The human technology keeping him alive. His people would know. They would question his loyalty. They might even call him a traitor. His legacy would be destroyed. Sarah started to say she would find another way, but Thelric stopped her. He said it did not matter. His legacy meant nothing if there was no peace to remember it. He would rather be called a traitor and save billions than stay silent and let them die. He sent the codes. Sarah used them to unlock the files. She downloaded everything. Evidence of the conspiracy. The money trails. The communications. The plans. She had it all, but then alarms started blaring. Security detected the hack. Guards were coming. Sarah grabbed her data chip and ran. She sprinted through the corridors. Behind her, she heard heavy footsteps. Shouts. She turned a corner and nearly ran into a Kryn security team. They raised their weapons. She was trapped. Then Crix appeared. He stepped between Sarah and the guards. He held up his military credentials. He ordered the guards to stand down. He said Sarah was with him. She was part of an authorized investigation. The guards hesitated. Crix was an officer, but their orders were to stop anyone suspicious. There was a tense moment. Then Crix did something unexpected. He removed his helmet. He showed his face. He identified himself as the grandson of Ambassador Thelric. The guards lowered their weapons. They respected Thelric. They trusted his family. They let Sarah go. Crix and Sarah ran together through the station. They met up with Velshara near the conference hall. The summit was starting. Delegates filed into the room. Thousands watched on video screens across the galaxy. The team had a problem. Crix disabled most of the bombs, but 3 remained. They were too deep in the walls. He could not reach them without heavy equipment. If they went off, they would still kill everyone in the conference room. Sarah looked at the data chip in her hand. She looked at her friends. She made a decision. They would go into the conference hall. They would expose the conspiracy right now. Live, in front of everyone. If the conspirators tried to detonate the bombs early, at least the truth would already be out. It was a huge risk, but it was their only chance. They entered the hall from a side door. Security tried to stop them, but Velshara used her telepathic powers to confuse the guards. Just for a moment. Just long enough to get through. The conference hall was enormous. Hundreds of delegates sat in tiered seating. At the front, the leaders gave speeches. The human ambassador was talking about trust and cooperation. Her words sounded hollow now. Sarah knew some of the people in this room wanted war, not peace. Sarah walked down the center aisle. Every eye turned to her. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Who was this human? Why was she interrupting? Security moved to intercept her, but then Ambassador Thelric stood up. His old voice rang out across the hall. He said to let her speak. He vouched for her. He said she had information of vital importance. The leaders looked at each other. They agreed to hear her out. Sarah approached the podium. Her hands shook. Billions were watching. The whole galaxy would see this. She plugged her data chip into the main display. Files appeared on the massive screens. Financial records, communications, everything. Sarah started talking. She explained the conspiracy. She named the three leaders, Admiral Kress, General Thax, Seer Velkoth. She showed the evidence, the money they spent, the mercenaries they hired, the bombs hidden in the walls right now. The hall erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted. Some accused her of lying. Others demanded answers. Security surrounded Admiral Kress, General Thax, and Seer Velkoth. But the conspirators were not done. General Thax shouted that this was a human trick. He said Sarah was trying to frame them. He called his loyal officers. They drew weapons. Seer Velkoth began channeling energy. Her light turned dark red. She was preparing to attack. Admiral Kress reached for a hidden detonator. He was going to blow the bombs. He was going to kill everyone. If he could not have his war one way, he would have it another. But Krix was faster. He leaped across the room and tackled Kress. They fought. Krix was strong, but Kress had the detonator. He pressed the button. Nothing happened. Krix had disabled enough of the bombs. The remaining ones were not enough to destroy the station. The plan failed, but General Thax was not giving up. His officers opened fire. Energy bolts filled the air. Delegates screamed and ran for cover. The peaceful summit turned into a battlefield. A bolt hit Krix. He fell. Green blood spread across the floor. Sarah ran to him. She tried to stop the bleeding, but the wound was too severe. It pierced his vital organs. He was dying. Sarah did not think. She reacted. The nanotech in her blood was military grade. It could heal any wound. It could save anyone. She cut her hand and pressed it to Krix's injury. She willed the nanomachines to transfer, to help him. The nanotech flowed from her blood into his. It spread through his body. It found the damaged organs. It started repairing them. The bleeding stopped. Krix's eyes opened. Every camera was still recording. The whole galaxy saw it. They saw a human doctor save a Kryn warrior with her own blood. They saw the nanotech work. They saw what it was really for. Not war healing. The fighting stopped. Everyone stared. The truth was undeniable now. Security forces moved in quickly. They arrested Admiral Kress, General Thax, and Seer Velkoth. The conspirators were surrounded, their weapons taken away. Their loyal officers surrendered when they realized the truth was known by everyone. Velshara used her telepathic powers one final time. She reached into the minds of all three conspirators. She pulled out their memories and projected them on the screens for everyone to see. Secret meetings, bribes, plans for assassination. Everything was exposed in vivid detail. There could be no doubt now. No confusion. The delegates watched in silence. Some were angry. Some were shocked. But most were relieved. The truth was painful, but it was better than living in a lie. Ambassador Thelric walked slowly to the podium. Every step seemed to cost him great effort. Sarah saw how weak he really was. Without constant medical care, he might not survive much longer. But he stood tall. He spoke with the voice of a leader who had seen too much war. He confessed his own secret. He told everyone about the human medical treatments that kept him alive. He said he hid it because he was afraid his people would think he was weak, afraid they would doubt him, but he was done being afraid. He said the truth was simple. Humans saved his life, not once but hundreds of times over 30 years. They asked nothing in return. They just wanted to help. That was the human way. They healed instead of hurt. They built instead of destroyed. He said the nanotech was not a weapon. It was a gift. A tool to save lives across all species. And today, everyone saw proof. They saw Sarah save Krix with her own blood. They saw what humans really stood for. Thelric's words rang through the hall. Young Kryn officers who followed General Thax began to lower their weapons. They looked ashamed. They had almost started a war over lies. The Velthara delegates whispered among themselves. Their light shifted from red to blue. Blue meant acceptance, understanding. They saw that Seer Velkoth had manipulated them. She used their fear to push them toward conflict. The human ambassador stood up. She looked tired but determined. She said Earth made a mistake. They should have been open about the nanotech from the beginning. Keeping secrets even with good intentions created distrust. She promised full transparency from now on. All human technology would be shared with the Galactic Council. More than that, She offered to help create a joint medical program. Human doctors would teach Kryn and Velthara how to use the nanotech. They would work together to develop new treatments. Medicine would become a shared resource, not a human monopoly. A Velthara elder spoke next. Her name was Charnel. She was old and wise. She said this day taught them all a lesson. Peace built on secrets was fragile. True peace required trust, and trust required honesty, even when honesty was difficult. She proposed a new version of the Peace Accord, one that included complete transparency between all species, shared technology, shared knowledge, shared responsibility, no more walls between them, no more suspicion. The delegates debated for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. They had just seen how close they came to destroying everything. They had seen good people from all three species working together to save everyone. Sarah, Crix, and Velshara proved that cooperation was possible, that it was powerful. By the end of the day, they voted. The new peace accord passed unanimously. It would be called the Unity Accord. Not just an agreement to stop fighting, but a commitment to grow together. The conspirators were put on trial. All three were found guilty. They were sentenced to life imprisonment. Their followers who participated knowingly received similar sentences. But those who were simply misled were given a chance to make amends. Many chose to join the new joint medical program, helping to heal the wounds their actions had caused. Over the following months, the galaxy changed. Human doctors began teaching nanotech therapy to Kryn and Velthara medical students. Velthara telepaths helped human counselors understand trauma and mental health better. Kryn engineers shared their advanced materials science with human and Velthara scientists. Trade increased. Cultural exchanges became common. Young people from all three species studied together at new joint universities. The old fears did not disappear overnight, but they faded. Generation by generation, the galaxy grew closer. Sarah retired from field medicine. She was offered a position as the head of the new Galactic Medical Alliance. It was a huge job. She would oversee medical programs across hundreds of worlds. She would train thousands of doctors from dozens of species. She accepted. But first, she took a vacation. She went back to Earth for the first time in 5 years. She walked on grass. She felt rain. She visited her family. Her mother cried when she saw her. Her father hugged her tight and would not let go. They asked her if she would stay. Sarah almost said yes. She was tired. She wanted rest. But when she looked up at the night sky and thought about all the people out there, all the species working together, she knew she had to go back. Ambassador Thelric died 3 months after the summit. He passed peacefully in his sleep. His last words were about the future. He said he finally saw what real peace looked like. Not just the absence of war, but the presence of friendship. They held a memorial service that lasted 3 days. Delegates from every species came to honor him. Kryn sang their death songs. Velthara created a light sculpture that showed his life story. Humans planted a tree in his name on every colony world. Crix inherited his grandfather's position as ambassador. He was young for such a role, but no one questioned his appointment. He proved himself that day at Unity Point. He showed courage, wisdom, and compassion, the qualities of a true leader. Velshara became a teacher. She trained young Velthara in the art of empathy and understanding. She taught them to use their telepathic powers not to spy or manipulate, but to build bridges, to truly understand other beings. Her students became the new generation of diplomats and peacekeepers. The three friends stayed in touch. They met once a year at the station where it all began. The station was renamed Unity Station. It became a symbol of what was possible when different species worked together. A memorial was erected in the mine tunnel where Sarah was shot. It was a simple monument made of 3 materials: human steel, Kryn crystal, Velthara lightstone. The 3 materials were fused together, stronger as one than they could ever be separately. The inscription read, "One shot meant to divide us. One choice that united us all. 20 years passed. Then 50. Then 100. The Unity Accord held strong. There were still disagreements, still arguments, still problems to solve, but they solved them together. With words, not weapons. With understanding, not hatred. New species joined the alliance. Some were peaceful. Some were warlike at first. But they all learned. They saw what peace could create: prosperity, safety, hope. The galaxy that once trembled on the edge of total war became a place of wonder. Joint projects transformed barren worlds into gardens. Combined technologies cured diseases that once killed millions. Shared art and culture enriched everyone, and at the heart of it all was a simple truth. The truth that Sarah, Crix, and Velshara discovered that day. That humans, with all their flaws and weaknesses, had one incredible strength. They knew how to bring people together. They knew how to find common ground. They knew how to heal, not through force, not through dominance, but through compassion, through sacrifice, through the willingness to see the good in others even when others could not see it themselves. That was the human way. And it changed everything. Sarah was 90 years old when she finally retired for good. Her hair was white. Her hands shook. But her mind was still sharp. She had trained 10,000 doctors in her lifetime. She had saved countless lives. She had helped build the greatest era of peace the galaxy had ever known. On her last day of work, they held a ceremony. Representatives from every species came to thank her. They brought gifts and gave speeches. But Sarah did not want praise. She wanted something else. She asked them all to remember one thing. Peace was not automatic. It was not guaranteed. Every generation had to choose it, had to work for it, had to defend it, not with weapons but with wisdom, with kindness, with the courage to do what was right even when it was hard. She said one shot almost destroyed 500 years of peace, but one choice saved it, and every day everyone made choices. Small choices. To help or to hurt, to unite or to divide, to build or to break, choose wisely, she told them. Because the galaxy was watching. The future was waiting, and it would be shaped by what they did today. Sarah died 2 years later. She passed quietly in her sleep, surrounded by family and friends, both human and alien. She had lived a full life. A good life. A life that mattered. They scattered her ashes in space near Unity Station. Thousands of ships came to witness. They formed a circle around the station. Kryn, Velthara, human, and dozens of other species, all there to honor one doctor who changed the galaxy. As her ashes drifted through the stars, they glowed. The nanotech in her body still worked, even in death. The tiny machines caught the light of nearby suns and reflected it. It looked like she was becoming part of the cosmos itself. Velshara, old now but still radiant, spoke the final words. She said Sarah taught them all what it meant to be strong. Not the strength to conquer, but the strength to sacrifice. Not the strength to destroy, but the strength to heal.